right, BIC episode 127. And on this scintillating episode, we're going to go into talking a little bit about the hockeys at the end. But before we talk about the hockeys, we're going to do a silly card of the week. We're going to go over a couple of comments from the last couple of episodes. I'll briefly touch on the attendance, hanging out like Bougie Eric himself. I looked down upon the peasants as I visited the suite. I did have a video about that, but I'll give a little short version of it. And then also we'll discuss responsible content creation. Because it's a thing. It's a lesson that needs to be occasionally relearned. That and more on this episode of the BIC podcast. Yes, under the watchful eyes of Brett Favre. Back once again, doing another episode. So I'm going to get into a couple of comments here from the previous episode. Last one was about Expo, some pickups and some Expo stories. So that was the end of our Expo coverage for the spring, like Shark Week, but lamer. So we got that on there. A couple different things. Folks, Oren Card said, love this. Appreciate it. That's a good succinct comment. Dan here said, there are some cards that have a very definite collection that they belong with. And this bougie card found its rightful home. Just happy to be the transportation mechanism to make it happen. See you Friday. And we did. And I agreed 100% with the statement. There is no one else that deserves that bougie card more. It's just truth. A little bit lower, but yes. Georges bougie. Agreed. 100%. Could not agree more. Jeff McMahon here says, I've always thought the lemon jersey was game used. Still a great looking jersey. Also, the NCAA, since the NCAA owes Eric money, I think it's only fair that he cast a curse on them like he did the Lions. And I said that's a valid point. He's making a solid argument there.
As soon as the Lions pay me the money they owe me, I will lift the curse and they can win the Super Bowl, but not until they pay me what they owe.
But he's saying, what about the NCAA? If they owe you money, shouldn't you be cursing them too?
Oh, I have.
Oh, I see. But thank you all for the comments. Appreciate the engagement as always. I will leave a link in the description to you for the last video. I did include the baseball game story time where I got my beloved Minecraft movie hat. Eric was very impressed with my Minecraft movie hat. It moved him to tears. Tears. So I did enjoy that. I had a little bit of fun with it. I did enjoy a good old-fashioned story time, though. It had been a while since I had done, a front-facing story time. Go ahead, Brandon.
Since we know Eric loved the Minecraft and the Minecraft movie, he's probably seen it like 4,200 times already. Eric, have you been to the shop recently?
Saturday.
I have to ask because we never know how long you escaped.
No, I was there most of the day Saturday working.
Okay. Do you guys have the Panini Squishmallow boxes?
No idea. I can look into it for you if you need them.
I really think you should add it to your list of your collectibles. Just there you go.
Panini Squishmallow.
Yeah.
I'll look into that.
Yeah, I think if you don't love them, your daughter probably would.
Okay. I'll have to look into whatever that is that you're talking about.
Interesting.
They have the color blasts. We all know about the color. I don't think they have kabooms or anything. They got the color blasts.
Okay. They got some downtowns. I love some downtowns.
There's also uptowns. Don't forget about the uptowns.
Downtowns, kabooms.
I'm not that knowledgeable into them, but Wes was kind enough to share us in the Discord a color blast. So I do know they have the color blast.
Wow. Impressive. Indeed. So there you go. So appreciate the comments and engagement as always. Thank you, everybody. In addition to that, in the same vein, I want to thank everybody that participated in voting for the Silly Card of the Week. Brought to us as always by our friends at AMG Collectibles, amgcollectibles.ca, and the AMG Collectibles YouTube channel. There will be a podcast episode this week where the Collector of the Scalps, Collector People, Steve and I will go over. This week, we've got 2324 UD Ultimate. Your Glory's last shot, except for in a couple of months, in theory, we're going to have 2324, the Cup. Oh my God. But before the Cup, there's an opportunity for a Connor Bedard shield from Ultimate. And not only that, listen, Eric, I looked at that checklist. There might be a Mike Modano shield. And I was like, y'all, in the year 2023, 5 technically, even though it's a 23-24 product of our Lord, a Mike Modano shield. Scandalous.
You think there might be a Reggie lemon one?
Does anyone
We can
know?
only assume.
So you know how they do like the update checklist where there's some cards that get missed in the. So if we're currently on 2023 in the year 2025, and there's probably some 2023s that'll get missed in the package. How many years will it take for those to potentially hit the market?
Well, in this particular issue, there's 2015-16 update cards.
Holy
so it could be a while. They're close to a decade is all I'm saying. You don't hold your breath is all I'm trying to get at here. You know that Fanatics red rookie card logo giveaway thing that a lot of people talked about and made fun of.
Oh, yeah.
But you know how like the last one is if they go to the Hall of Fame and all that stuff?
Yeah.
It's like that, but like updates. The player is retired and in the Hall of Fame. Hey guys, we got a rookie RPA in the update. Okay, great. Good to know. Thumbs up. So yes, we'll talk about Ultimate. That'll be the main one that I think we'll be discussing. The other stuff will be later on, but we'll definitely talk about that. There are some cards that came in the shop as well. We'll talk about that. Link in the description. Thank you to AMG for supporting the podcast and the channel. All right. So let's talk about the results from last week's Silly Card of the Week. We had 34 votes total, a couple of likes on this poll. Thank you as always appreciate you. So I'll give you the totals here. Eric pretending it's about the gum when really we know it was about the stick. 26%. Probably not going to get the job done. Alas. Most of you didn't understand the Albert Pujols one, though. That disappoints me. You should listen to the episode because the explanation helps it. So that one had 9%, which means with a dominant, nearly 2/3 majority. And again, we count all the votes. This is the only true democracy in this world. So the question was, what does everybody want? And the answer apparently is what Eric says all the time. Head.
I'm going to see if I can find
it. Need?
Well, never mind. You got it queued up. I had a card that I wanted to use this week, and I completely forgot about it until you mentioned the pool holes. Because I had one that I wanted to play off of the pool holes that you would have absolutely loved. And I forgot about it.
You can save for next week. I saved one from last week. I could have used this one last week.
I'm going to actually write myself a note so I remember.
Take a note. So we're going to showcase this week's Silly Card of the Week candidates. Again, we'll create another poll here in the community post once again, and you can all vote on your favorite once again. And I do say, though, I do encourage you to listen sometimes because sometimes the explanation may help with it. Of course, you can just look at the pictures if you like, but sometimes the explanation adds a little extra to it. But regardless, we're going to get into it. All right. So we're going to start off here. And I believe the first one here is actually Eric's. So let me get into that here.
Okay.
Let me do a little screen share here. Thingamabobber. Click on that. And there we go. So this is the first one that we're going to be showcasing here. So Eric, obviously, once again, I want to remind Brandon, we talked about this last week. Eric's mind in his eyes went to a certain level talking
waist high.
And we're back. I want you to know that we're back there.
Yeah.
So Eric, go ahead. With that said, explain. Go ahead.
So this is one of my favorite former Bruins, Randy Burridge, who is being assaulted by somebody from the New York Rangers, who is just punching him right in the nuts. There's no hockey play. There's no hockey stick. There's no puck. There's just this New York Ranger just punching Randy Burridge in the nuts. I feel bad for Randy Burridge.
Eric?
I hope to meet him someday. I've never yet met him. I would like to meet him someday. Are
you excited about the prospect of him saying, "Hey, Eric, how's it going? How are you doing there?"
This card and have him sign it and put something in regards to this photo in writing.
So, in fairness, I'm not. It's not time yet for the TBF.
Yeah. Gotta be careful.
I don't see Burridge with a stick either. So could this have possibly been a fight shot?
No, listen, all I know is that the Ranger is he's heading in one direction, and as he's going by, he's just given
Eric, I know.
it's
Listen, I know you're excited about this. I know you're excited about this, but can we take one more factoid from this photograph into consideration?
What
If
was
you
that?
look at his jersey, it looks like it's getting pulled.
Or
No,
he's got very
Literally,
both
literally,
torsos twisted.
the bottom of the jersey is actually getting pulled.
he's punching him right in the nuts.
How does that pull the jersey then?
The jersey's in the way, and as
The jersey is magically getting pulled towards the punch. That's what's going on right now.
As the punch is going in, it's pulling the jersey.
It's pulling the jersey, really,
from the back, between the
from the
numbers.
back. It's pulling the jersey from the back.
I don't know why you guys are trying to fight me on my card. It's silly card of the week. It looks as if he's getting punched in the nuts.
I just think you want him to be being punched in the nuts. I'm saying there's a possibility there may be something else going on here. It's a little bit of a strange circumstance on this.
I think the New York Ranger player is just tagging him in the nuts as he's skating by. That's where I'm going with it.
Is his head the proper size?
That's an important question.
From what I can tell, I believe that is the case.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I do have one more thing to point out here.
Oh, I'm going to start ripping apart you guys' cards.
In this segment, we have used a lot of Upper Deck cards from the 90s.
Yep.
Whether it be collector choice or this is, regular Upper Deck. Can we just point out the fact of the photography and the effort that was used in the photos, whether they were silly or not? We still appreciate them today and have been using the hell out of 90s Upper Deck. Why can't we get some of that today?
Scandalous.
Ooh.
Truly scandalous. One last thing I want to mention. So let's go with Eric's theory. For the sake of this conversation, let's go with Eric's theory. And again, not just wishful thinking, because secretly this tells me that he wants, if he ever meets Randy Burridge, he's like secretly like, can I punch in the nuts? Because that excites me. Personally, he's like, he just wants it to be true. But my question is, let's go with Eric's theory. Let's assume that's exactly what this is. You know that Upper Deck's not supposed to show any fights on their cards. Kind of like an edict from the NHLPA. So true. If we go with that, and yet this would pass.
Interesting. Like I said, I don't see a stick with either of them.
It's a drive-by. Okay,
we got questions.
Drive-by. It is not a fight. It is a drive-by nut tap.
Interesting. Interesting.
And it's wrong. It's just wrong.
Is it though, Eric? Is the hour of giggling you did after you found this and decided to use this card? Are you sure you're saying it's wrong? You're like, but it feels right to me.
No,
that's what I'm getting from this.
It's wrong.
All right, that's what you say. So that is one of your candidates. That is one of your candidates.
And I hope to get this signed by Randy Burridge someday.
So that is one of your options. The second option is here. Go ahead, Brandon. This one's you. It's Man Thing.
Yeah, this is 1975 Topps Comic Book Heroes. I thought it was appropriate. It looks like Eric coming out and just
after giggling for an hour, looking at
the soap
nut
in
punches.
The shower. And it's a Man Thing.
Man Thing.
And look, he was talking about earlier before we hit record about the rain. You see it soaked, he didn't have to water his lawn. It all worked. It all worked.
It all comes together. Now, look, here's the thing. Eric, don't worry. I'm going to save this segment because we've gone from the unfortunate to the seedy. We've gone a lot of these things. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring us back. I'm going to bring us back to a calmer, more peaceful thing. We'll have a brief moment of peace before we discuss the onset of war. And I'll explain that in a minute. Before we do that, we'll have a little bit of peace. Because our friends at Upper Deck, and once again, we're back with Upper Deck, so we're going to sandwich some Upper Deck here. Our friends at Upper Deck, we've discussed in the past the AEW Upper Deck products. Now, we've also discussed.
Please be a tooth.
It's not going to be a tooth, but you're heading in the right direction. You're heading in the right direction. We have the subset, the Retouched, which previously gave us the tooth card. Yes, it did have that. But Eric will be pleased to know that the Retouched inserts were not just used that 1 year. They were used again in another year. And they had another set of Retouched. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the latest version of Upper Deck Retouched. So this is wrestler Willow Nightingale, who obviously is posing in the ring with a double bicep pose, and in the background, as you do, is a pink unicorn with a rainbow. Yes, Eric. Yes.
It doesn't even go with her outfit.
No, there's Brandon. The best part about this is that I understand kind of conceptually what they're going with it, but this is a stretch. Now, here's a question: is this better or worse than the tooth?
This is better because at least we noticed it.
You can't miss it. You can't miss
the
it, bro.
Tooth, we were confused as we didn't know what was going on. At least this one, we kind of see something was done.
Mm-hmm. Does it help that the way they distinguish these, in addition to the word retouched, is that they use the holographic kind of foil, so it's extra shiny. It's got a little reflective shine to it. If you see it, Eric, I just found your new favorite card.
It makes it more special.
Come on, Eric, your new favorite card, Rainbow Unicorns. Let's go. When I saw this one, Brandon, I was like, yes, this is it right here. We're back to the retouch. Well, Upper Deck, you did it again. Magoo, you did it again.
Photography. The photography.
The Photoshops. That's how this is going to play. I love it. Fantastic. That's right, Eric. That's right. So I will include all of these 3 options. Will be on your community post. You may select from these options and tell us what is the silly card of the week. And all I have to say is Rainbow Unicorn. That's all I got to say. Rainbow Unicorn. Or you could pretend, or you could be like Eric and talk about, men punching other men in the junk. Because that's what he's into. When he's not talking about extra stiff shafts. Yep. We know where Eric's mind is going while he's watching some Emmanuel in space.
And he can't blame it on me this time because I have not went down that road. I've been playing fair.
Eric's the one hanging out below the belt now. Now we're sensing a theme the last couple of weeks.
Before he had reasoning. He had the excuse.
Eric acted alone.
I've not been playing that anymore.
Eric acted alone. So Brandon, believe it or not, I can segue off of that if you were ready. I think it's going to be fantastic. It's going to be fabulous. So, look, we need to talk about this. I was watching the most recent episode of the Hockey Cards Gongshow. And I'm going to keep this very broad strokes because, frankly, I saw it. As soon as I saw it, I was like, this could be interesting. So on there, one of the segments they've got there is the mailbag. And the thing in mailbag is exactly what it sounds like. It's a series of questions, and they can answer. So one of the questions they had on there is why Bobby Burrell, obviously a staple of the live stream, he had been doing a couple of the O-Pee-Chee kind of history segments with them. So he had done like a part 1 and a part 2 talking about O-Pee-Chee. Unfortunately, Bobby didn't tell us much about 66, 67 O-Pee-Chee because we all know everything is O-Pee-Chee. I'll get back to that in a minute. But regardless, he was telling about the history of O-Pee-Chee and leading up. And each one of the segments had led to a different era of O-Pee-Chee, going through a whole history of the O-Pee-Chee company and all that stuff. Okay, great. Very informative, very hashtag scholarly. Okay. So we're doing all that. So the question was, when is the part 3 coming? Because there had been 2 parts thus far. And then the Gong Show guys explained that there had been some clips brought to their attention that Bobby, so I'll paraphrase, but basically the way it was phrased is that Bobby didn't seem to like the show. And he had some comments that obviously, Eric has a feeling, but apparently feelings have been hurt. So now I'm trying to keep it together, people. I really am. But I must tell you, I must confess, Brandon, I cannot tell a lie, that when I saw this and I heard it, I may have had myself a little chuckle. May have had, dare I say, a guffaw.
Hold on. Oh, time.
Go ahead.
We've been doing this show quite a while now.
We have.
I think that is the debut of the $1 Million Cackle on the podcast.
It's possible.
Because we've been 5% more mature, and I don't think we've ever invoked it. So we might need to mark this 5/5 of 25 was the debut I believe. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. If you are a
Regardless,
loyal
if
viewer
so,
and
it's
you
used
remember
sparingly.
it, please let us know with what episode we invoked it before. But I think that was the debut. Carry on.
It could very well be. It could very well be. I will say, regardless, it has been used more sparingly on this show. Regardless, if it has been used, it's been very sparing. Now, Eric, all I'll say. So I'm gonna give some context. I want to make sure I keep this high level context. But Eric, I think you will agree that that is probably a dramatic reenactment of pretty much exactly what happened, at least from my perspective, when I saw this. I don't think it's a stretch to suggest that perhaps something along those lines occurred. So nonetheless, so I see this and I share it with the people, and we get and we check it out. Now, look, I'm going to, believe it or not, I am in the spirit of 5% more maturity. I am going to take a different angle on this. I am actually, we disagree on this a little bit. I am going to give the Gong Show folks some credit. I actually think their response to it was actually fairly, all things considered, fairly even keel. Because here's the main reason why. And then I also want to branch off this into a slightly different topic, but staying in the same theme. The reality of it is, I don't know exactly which clips they were provided with, but, and I'll come back to why the clips thing is important. I don't know what clips they were provided with, but having a pretty good idea and a guess, there's a good likelihood that it was, let's just say the clips or the quotes probably were 5% less mature. And they responded to it, I will say, all things considered, fairly even keel, at least left the door open. Reality is, and this is going to be the main theme of this, I'm okay with the response to it because if you're going to respond at all, then you have to kind of keep it as even keel as you can. But the reality of it is that you have the right. So this will be my first statement on it. On your show, you have the right to decide who is invited and who's not invited, and what the criteria is for invite. It's not a, it's not an, it's a privilege. It's not a right. So nobody has to be invited onto anything. If it is your platform, you have the right to decide who can be on it and who cannot be on it. And like I said, I'll revisit this particular piece of the conversation. So all things considered, again, not having seen the specific clips, there's a likelihood that it's like, yeah, probably. I could see how they could come to that conclusion. I still cackled, to be fair.
To be fair.
Indeed. So with that, like, I understood, and well done, Eric. That was a good one by you. I understood. I got it. But here's where I'm going to make a little bit of a separation. And again, like I said, it is their right certainly to do that. And I think the response for me, I was okay with it. And I think it was fair. But I think this is where I want to circle around to something else, though. I've talked about in the past the content side of things. I did the video with Eric where I talked about when I had the 1,000 video on the channel. And kind of lessons learned and all that. That was one video that I've done. I've done another one. I don't remember the specific one, but I did one where I was kind of talking about the whole live stream format and everything. We make the whole thing here about the 5% more mature because compared to the wackiness of the Friday live, it is. Like, let's be fair. There is a big gap between the two things. But that's why I like to do this kind of thing in this venue. It allows me to expand upon it this way. One of the things, though, that I've said in the past here, at least either here or in the live, maybe in both places, is that when you have the channel and it's yours, ultimately the responsibility for the content of it falls on you. And I use the exact example. I said, if I do the panel show and everything, and somebody said something that's completely out of pocket, even though they're the one that said it, I am still ultimately responsible because I invited them. So then I have to then deal with it. Because if they said something truly out of pocket, something tremendously inappropriate, I'm still the one who has to deal with it one way or the other. They would have their own separate thing that they need to deal with, but that's a different conversation. So I will generally, if you're watching it and you're seeing it, I'm co-signing and I'm accepting what's on there because I'm leaving it on the channel as is. If I don't think it's appropriate, then it's up to me to do something about it. That's the first thing that I've talked about before. But the other side of it, and I think this example here, I think actually allows a good reminder. And this isn't just for us. It isn't just for this channel. It's for anybody else out there. The internet lives forever. Everything that's put on, if you put it out into the public domain, you're basically saying it's okay for other people to see it. It's okay for other people to clip it. It's okay for other people to disseminate it. So you better be comfortable standing behind what you said. It's not my job to decide or debate on the specifics. I actually don't care. In this case, I'm completely okay with the response to it. I get it in context. I don't remember the specifics, but I can imagine, just thinking back a little bit, I probably understand where they're coming from. But regardless, they exercise their right to respond to it in the way they saw fit. I'm okay with that. But then on the other end of it here, we, the collective we, Me as the person who runs the channel, but anybody else who comes on here, you are ultimately responsible for you say for yourself as well. So, and that goes for this channel, that goes for any other channel. If I go on somebody else's channel, that person's responsible for bringing me on if I say something inappropriate, but I'm also responsible because I said it. So I still bear some responsibility. I'm not absolved of responsibility because I'm on somebody else's channel. I do think it's a good thing though to remember sometimes, because I don't think the majority of people who do these things are going to have to worry about that, because if you're keeping it between the line and it's just about cards or whatever, like you can say you don't like a set, you can say you don't like, a certain design, whatever. I think that's well within the lines. You can pretty much say it anywhere, and I don't think there's too much issue with that. But when you do decide to kind of make it directed at another channel or another individual, another personality, you are taking a little bit of a risk with it. And I think it's a good kind of case study and reminder of that. You have to bear in mind that people can hear you. People can pass that along. That, hey, I saw that you said XYZ about me on wherever. Well, if it's publicly available, then of course they can see it. You have made it publicly available. It's not a conversation behind closed doors. So that's the first thought that I want to bring up. There's a second thought to it, but let me stop there for a second. I want to get any thoughts you guys have on that.
Well, as someone, obviously I have my own channel. I don't do a ton of videos and stuff like that anymore. But to what you're saying, first of all, if you're going to bring someone on your channel, like you said, you're responsible not just for what you say, but for what they say. I have had things that have been held against me just by guilty of association, or by taking up for someone that by perception of that time, I felt, was a different situation. And people don't like to understand that, if you said it, that's carried with you. Let's take it outside of YouTube and look at some of these athletes and stuff where they've made like maybe a social media post, maybe when they were, teenagers or something, and just stupid. But that stuff, like you said, the internet lives on. And if somebody has a way to dig it up, that's held against them. So in this, in this situation, when you're doing a video or recording or whatever, the whole scenario, but between this instance that we're talking about, I don't know all of the details. I'm not 100% familiar with their channel, and I know Bobby from doing the lives and stuff with him. But I don't know like the connection of them too. So I don't want to speak so much on that, but to use it as an example, and I'm not saying this is what they did, but creators sometimes, maybe they wanted Bobby on because they knew he had a lot of knowledge and stuff about a topic that they thought their audience would be interested in. And sometimes I think creators will reach out because it benefits them for the subject material that that person brings on. Or, if it's a smaller channel and they can get access to a larger, presence to come on, and they think it's going to attract views and, all of that. I'm not saying that's what happened, but it does happen. Now, the issue with that is if you don't have prior experience with that person, you're kind of lighting a fire there, playing with fire a little bit, because you don't have a built relationship with that person. So, well, as stated in this scenario, maybe that person doesn't like you. They may be willing to come on because you have a platform, but they're doing it also that it could possibly benefit them. So the road can go both directions, and that's why I think it's best to know, or at least establish a relationship with somebody, get their character, get their, their personality and everything, and see if it's going to work before just blindly saying, hey, would you come on? And then opening yourself up, or allowing them to open the can of worms, and letting all hell break loose. I'll just personally say there is many channels out there that I don't care who, if they ask me to come on, there's no chance in hell I'm coming on there because I don't like them. So I'm not going on someone's channel if I don't like them, and vice versa. If they don't like me, I don't want them on my channel. So, I just think it's silly that we even get to that point, especially in a niche like this as cards, as grown men. But when you bring the social media and the popularity and the personalities and all that, it's never going to fully mesh together. So,
Yeah. And there's something I want to touch on that. But before I do, Eric, do you want to give any thought? Because I want to branch off of what Brandon said, but is there any thought you have on the initial idea here?
Well, on the initial idea of being responsible for your platform, I mean that's obviously an important part,
Mhm.
and the person whose platform it is definitely in charge of what goes on there. And we see this, for example, with Whatnot. That's a platform.
Mhm.
There's a lot of nonsense that goes on there. There's this backyard break stuff is just utterly ridiculous. People have to make a decision of how they're going to deal with that, because Whatnot, in my opinion, is not holding the people they bring on their platform accountable for their behavior. I wouldn't have a problem with Whatnot if they immediately said, sorry guys, crossed the line, inappropriate, gotta go.
Mhm.
They didn't, and I deleted the app, and I won't
Sure.
do business with them again. I know a lot of people are not doing business with backyard breaks anymore. Not enough to affect their bottom line, I don't think, but I know there's people that said, I'm not doing Whatnot and I'm not doing backyard breaks anymore. So yeah, there needs to be accountability by the platform holder and the people who watch it and participate. So I agree with all of that. When it comes to this situation, I respected the fact that um, their retort was respectful. I found.
I think
Uh,
so for the most part. I agree with that.
I found it to be respectful, and I think if anybody mentions someone else, that person, that entity, that platform has a right to retort.
Mhm.
And I think their retort was respectful. I hope it's something they can work out. I was definitely been looking forward to Bobby going back on there and doing this part 3. Obviously he's a dear friend of ours. We care very much about him. We support him. Um, I don't know exactly what clips were sent, or what.
I could guess though. That was the thing. I don't know the specifics. I don't know,
I
but I could guess. I
Yeah,
could guess.
maybe I could too. I just like to say that sometimes, and maybe it's something we need to remind ourselves, is that we kind of, on Fridays, we have a shtick.
So Eric, I do want to get to that. That's
Yeah,
actually part of my second point. So
yeah,
I do want to touch on that. We will come back to that. I promise.
yeah. Okay. So, I mean, so if you want, we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. But
Yeah.
you got to be careful what you say, even if it's a shtick.
Yeah.
So,
So the reason why, so just so everybody's clear, I'm not here to defend anybody and I'm not here to condemn anybody. That's why I led off at the beginning. I will take ultimate responsibility for the totality of it. I will take 100% responsibility. In this instance, let me make a distinction. This is where I want to get to my second point. In this case, there's a distinction. The first distinction is if somebody says something incredibly inappropriate and out of pocket, to the point that I have to step in as the person who is ultimately
offensive.
responsible for the totality, because then it's not appropriate. It is, it's wrong on all levels. Then there's the second level, which is you say something that maybe they're upset about, or maybe they're not going to like, but that's between the two of you. That's a specific situation that you two can resolve amongst yourselves. So my job is not to intercede in that case. But as the totality of the whole, we didn't suddenly screech the show to a screeching halt. Again, I'm making a estimated guess, but the show that suddenly didn't screech to a screaming halt. We may have just chuckled or smiled and moved on, because we were not directly involved in that transaction. We were not party to the specific back and forth with that. And we don't have any association to the show in question beyond that. So regardless, and that's why I'm going to make a distinction. So my point number 2 that I want to make here, and that's the reason why this was interesting to me beyond, again, my cackling at the beginning, beyond that. The reason it was interesting to me is that most YouTube content, I'll use an example, or podcast content or whatever, if you're sticking within a certain narrow frame, I don't think this is ever going to be an issue for you, because maybe you're somebody who's looking at a product and you're a consumer. You buy a box, you open the box, you give your thoughts on what the cards look like, the design, or this, that, and the other thing, what you like, what you don't like. At that point, everything's fair game. You can say whatever you want. But when you introduce layers to this, it becomes more complex. Because if you get, say, sponsored by Upper Deck, I'm just using them as an example, but it could be Topps Fanatics, it could be anybody. It doesn't really matter. You get a box for free. Okay, you might still have an opinion on it, but maybe you take the edge off. Not because you don't want to say what you want to say, but you're also taking into account there's a relationship here now that they have provided you an item. That's one form of relationship that can be part of it. A second one is you're trying to expand your story or whatever it is. Maybe you're created a periodical. Victor had his book, the rookie card book that he did, and when he's going on different podcasts and everything. So imagine if he had gone there, obviously promoting his book, doing that, and they're helping him with that. And then he goes somewhere else and says, oh man, the guys on those podcasts, they don't know what they're doing. He never did that, but I'm just using it as an example, as a point. Go ahead.
I just wanted to, real quick. I mean, we all three can relate exactly to what you're saying here, because we have the AMG ticker rolling right across the screen.
We do, yeah.
So anything we say, if it was offensive or, outlandish,
yeah,
we have that right there, so that could reflect to them. Eric, he talks about, his shop all the time where he goes and allegedly works,
it's alleged, yeah.
that it could be a reflection on them. And then, I have the SGC bulk subs and everything else that, if I was to say something outlandish or, way offensive, something like the whatnot thing, and that got back to them, they wouldn't want to associate with that. If they did, there's a problem, But yeah, so we all three have a connection there to things even, we can have fun, we can joke, we can say things in jest, and people understand that it is a joke. But if it was to go across that line, because there is a line, we all have things that it could reflect bad on and potentially affect us or affect them. So
now, kind of in that vein, though, is that line. So this is kind of where I want to lead to for the second concept here. So I have to give a lot of background so that you guys fully understand where I'm going with it. Is that line the brain is talking about, though, is not a static line. It's a dynamic line. And what the situation is matters. Because if you're completely free and you have no associations, you have no connections to the industry or this niche at all, you don't really have any, you don't really do a lot of collaboration with other channels. You don't really have any connections with anybody. You don't know anybody at any of the companies, any of that. You can pretty much say whatever you want in whatever manner you please. Because what's the worst that happens? What, they blackball you from a thing you're not involved in? You lose nothing, Eric. Like, there's nothing to lose, right? So you can't upset anybody because it doesn't really matter whether you do or you don't. Like, you're not involved. Where it gets complex and you start attacking on layers is if you do have some relationships. And this is kind of a point that I want to lead this into a little bit. What makes this interesting is when you add in those additional layers. So I'll use the AMG one for example for me, and I've talked about this before. I've been very transparent about it, but I'll repeat it again just to be on the safe side, is that the work I do with AMG and what I'm doing with them on the podcast and everything else, that doesn't change my ability to say more or less what I want to say. They trust me enough to trust my judgment that I will not misrepresent them in some way. But it also means that in the back of my mind, I will still keep in mind that even when I'm being critical, here I can talk about a product. I don't agree with this insert. I don't like the way they did this. I don't like the way they did that. But then somebody can go and watch that podcast episode and I'll be talking about this product, and all of a sudden that critique will not be there. That criticism will not be there. Why? Well, it's a card shop and they are selling said product, and their objective and hope is to sell said product. So me chiming in here and talking down upon the product they're selling in the store. Eric, does that seem like a good idea to you? Does that seem like something appropriate for me to do?
I wouldn't recommend it.
Correct. But important caveat, that doesn't mean I'm going to lie. That doesn't mean I'm going to tell you, oh man, this is the most amazing product in the world, the most tremendous value of all time. My goodness, it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. No, I'm not going to do that. What I am going to do is, more than likely, I will look at it. I will look at the product from top to bottom. I'll cover what's in it. I'll cover what you can get. I'll cover all these different aspects of it. And more than likely, even in the course of something that I may have some criticisms of, I can probably find some item, some component of it that I like. Well, then guess what? I'm going to focus my attention on. I'm going to focus my attention. I actually think this insert is extremely well done. I actually think this is a really cool looking item. That's not lying, but that's focusing my attention. I'm accentuating the positive on it and giving an opinion that's still my real opinion, but I'm focusing it in the categories where I can, because again, my ultimate goal is to help them with what they're trying to accomplish. So I understand that. So when I'm approaching it that way, the content you're getting from me goes through that lens. Here, it's 5% more mature than Friday. So the conversation we're having would be a lot more. There'd be a lot more, waving, inflatable guys in the background. There'd be a lot more me playing clip, probably a couple more $1 Million Man plays. Like there'd be a lot more wackiness involved.
I might say that, like, yes, we're sponsored by AMG, but the former owner of AMG is a big stupid jerk face with bad breath and smelly feet.
Indeed.
But he gives you nice presents.
He wouldn't say that here on Mondays, but maybe on Friday, we would insult the former owner of AMG.
Scandalous, truly scandalous. But what's interesting is then you add in another layer. That's one form of something. I gave you a couple of examples. Here's another one. What if you're someone, and this is, I experience this firsthand at the expo every year, twice a year. It is one of my favorite things. And I'll just tell you guys, I'll pull behind the curtain a little bit. Remember, we're a niche. Sports cards are a niche, remember. And then take the hockey card portion of the hobby. We're even more niche-y, but a very tight-knit niche, a very passionate niche of people are involved in this. But that world is smaller than a lot of people would think. So when we go to the expo, that is the epicenter of kind of this category, you're going to have a lot of the players there. Now, I can tell you, and I'm not revealing anything that should come as a shock, not everybody likes everybody. Not everybody respects everybody. But you know what's interesting? What's fascinating? If you ever go to the expo, what you're going to find is you're not even going to know. If you don't know, you will never know, because there will be people that will be walking down the same hallways, that will be interacting, that will be there. They'll shake hands, exchange a word, and then be on their way like ships in the night. And I could sit there and I could tell you, this person, they hate each other's guts. The moment they're out of earshot of each other, they will take every opportunity. There will be backhanded compliments. There will be snide comments, passive aggressive this, passive aggressive that. It's hysterical to watch. But here's the thing. People are human beings. It's part of the real world. Not everybody loves everybody. Doesn't matter how you want to play this. Now, to Eric's point from earlier, on Fridays, I'm taking a completely different approach to this. On Fridays, I pull a pin and I lob grenades from time to time. It's a lot of fun for me. But here's the thing. Sometimes it's totally tongue-in-cheek, and the target knows it's coming, and they respond in kind, and we have a back and forth, and it's a lot of fun. Other times, the target doesn't like it, but they can't say anything about it, because at the end of the day, that weird equilibrium has to be maintained as much as it is. But here's an important thing with that. When I'm doing a lot of the stuff I'm doing, because the channel doesn't have too many, I know a lot of people in some of these companies and associations, but because we don't have a direct connection and we're not doing any business or anything, I can have a direct conversation with them, have a real conversation with them. I go, I don't like this. I like this. I don't like this. I like this. I don't like this. And we can just have that frank discussion. So if I'm critical of something, they understand where it's coming from. So, okay, that's fine. There are other folks, it's like, no, again, same thing. There's some folks that I don't like, and I don't have a lot of respect for. But if you want to keep circulating inside of this game, you got to pick your battles. Sometimes you can be openly hostile and throw a grenade if you want to. Other times, you got to play the game. Other times, you got to be, especially if you want to take advantage of somebody else's platform. If that's what you're doing and you want to take advantage of that, all of a sudden, you got to bite your tongue. All that stuff that no one likes to do, isn't it? But here's what's funny, Eric. People should be used to this, because if you've ever worked in a lot of places, sometimes you got to work with people you don't like, and you're working there. So guess what? That thing you wanted to say, that zinger that you are about to toss, suddenly it gets swallowed. It does not come out of your mouth as much as you might want to, because someday down the road, that person you are about to say that to might be in a position to turn it back to you in kind.
Another addition to that, like you said, in the real world workplace, sometimes you got to work with people you may not like.
For sure.
But there's also the instances where you might come across somebody that you didn't think you would like, and you end up actually getting along. And I think the same thing could be said with this, because the perception, the way people come across, let's be honest, okay? A lot of people think I am an ass, all right? I'm not going to deny that. I know that. I have that persona about me, okay? But then there's also people that might think that, and if they actually meet me, their opinion changes, because your whole personality doesn't always come across when you're sitting behind a camera and a microphone. It's not always a full representation of who you are, what you're about. When we say things, sometimes it may not come out, or we may not express it the way that it was necessarily intended, or maybe somebody takes it a different way than we intended. That's part of social media. That's part of indirect, watching a video and having to just take it in by viewing or listening. And that's going to happen. But sometimes getting on and actually doing a show or something, you might find that, hey, you got more in common, or the person's not as bad as you actually thought they were. So, I thought Eric was just freaking ridiculous for the longest time. And now look.
I'm still convinced it's ridiculous.
Still am.
I'm convinced. I'm 100% convinced.
I still am. Thank you.
Yes, yes. And with all that Brandon said, well said, Brandon. And with that said, I am at least as much of a jerk as you think I am. At least. Honestly, I could do better. In person, I can do much better. But nonetheless, I digress. So real quick, last kind of side thing. That's why I said I wanted to branch off of this. I wanted to take this discussion point because I honestly think it's a good reminder. Look, I on Friday, I might have to remind the crew, and now we're going to talk about the Friday thing. Listen, on Friday, I might just have to remind the crew, hey guys, occasionally somebody watches this shit. Just so you all know, occasionally somebody and listen, they got like these recording devices now. So anything you just said, somebody can play it back to you. Are you sure you want that? Before you say the thing, are you sure you want that played back for you? In the court hearing, especially, Eric.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. The evidence is out there. Look, very important thing.
You keep talking shit about Brady. He keeps opening shops. He's going to take you to court for defamation.
Oh, listen, what Eric said about Brady is scandalous. Truly scandalous. So the thing is, the internet lives forever. These things are recorded. Again, you do you. This isn't me telling you not to, for the rest of you, this isn't me telling you not to say what you feel like is appropriate. Look, say what's in your heart if that's what you want to do. But do understand there are mitigating circumstances. I have more of a luxury. Now we'll carry it over to the Friday. Part of the reason that Friday works the way that it does is that it is way more than 5% less mature. Not even like maybe 555% less mature. It's maybe closer to the reality. The truth is it's kind of a free-for-all band of ridiculousness, but you have to kind of read between the lines sometimes. There is a lot of tongue-in-cheek. There is a lot of sarcasm, a lot of, commentary on it, good, bad, or indifferent. But there's also little kernels of truth in the course of it. So you have to be a discerning listener to kind of figure out that. And usually you can, if you're paying attention, you can tell the difference between one thing and another. However, it is an excellent reminder to everybody involved, here or elsewhere, here or not, at this time that we're having this conversation. You are still accountable for what you say. You do have to remember that somebody's on the other end listening. And more than likely, even if that person is not listening at that moment, somebody else is listening and is happy to pass along the clip. That's just reality. So you have to be comfortable in the tea. Totally. But it's different though when it's secondhand though from when you actually said it. There's a difference because no, you actually did say it. Like we can, oh, but you didn't get the context. Go ahead and play the whole thing because it's right there. Like it's all there. This isn't behind closed doors. Somebody is whispering, somebody, hey, I think he said this. No, it's right there. For in living color, in video to be played back. It is Memorex. Okay. It's real and it's Memorex. You get the whole thing. So you do have to remember that. So then just make sure that from your perspective, you're comfortable with whatever it is you said. The one thing that I've tried to do in all of these things, I have to be willing to live with whatever it is I said. If I'm not comfortable with what I said, then I probably shouldn't have said it. That's it. Like if I'm not comfortable with what I said, I probably shouldn't have said it, or I should have found a different way to communicate it or whatever. But that's on me. I'm still ultimately responsible for that piece. For the overall here, I'm ultimately responsible. But generally speaking, I go back and re-listen to everything. I try my best to make sure I'm not perfect. I'm sure I've missed stuff, but I try my best to make sure that for the most part, the message is getting communicated out at least as best as possible. But I think it was a good example of there are people out there listening. They may not be the people that you see or hear, but they're out there. You got to make sure that you know that when you're saying a thing. Go ahead.
I I don't think that there's anybody in the circle that, whether it's this or the
Oh,
Friday.
I listen. I know it was Eric that ratted somebody out. I know it
No,
was
no,
Eric.
no, 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 no. So I think sometimes people speak freely in this niche
Mm-hmm.
because the accountability of it is so little. I mean, we've brought up the whatnot thing, and
Mm-hmm.
Backyard Breaks is still making a killing, right? The dude said that disgusting shit, and people are still giving them money. They're still on the platform, right? We hear people complain about various different things in the hobby. We've said it over and over and over again. If you want change, you got to speak. You got to speak with your wallet, and people continue to ignore that and still piss money away. There's little accountability, and I think sometimes that's why things may go out of bounds because there's not there's not really punishment, I guess. There's not a lot of reaction to it.
Yeah, it's consequences basically. You're
Yeah,
saying there's not a
it's
lot of
like,
consequences.
okay,
Yeah.
so and so will do a video talking about it or whatever, and people
Mhm.
will look
Sure.
down, but there's thousands of others that are just going to ignore it or won't see it or won't know a damn thing about it because the space is so broken. It is so, and when I mean broken up, you might have just the card shop guy or just the show guy or the guy that doesn't watch YouTube. So there's so many different angles in this one niche, even though it's small, it's got a lot of slices to it. And so it's not like NBC News is, broadcasting it to the world and everybody's seeing it or whatever. So I do think that is sometimes why things are spoken freely and because there's not any backlash or accountability drawn to it.
Sure, I think it's fair. But I think bottom line though, kind of to put a button on this, and Eric, I'll give you the last word, but I'll put a button on this piece. The thing that comes down to, and again, it was a fascinating topic for me because it opened it up to have this conversation. And I think it's a good reminder. I thought that's why I thought it was worthwhile having the discussion. The other piece of the puzzle though, that comes into it is that there is, as I said, different lines, as I mentioned earlier, depending on your specific situation. I
Mhm.
have a lot more latitude. So speaking of the Friday, on the Friday, I have a lot more latitude to have a lot more fun with what I want to say. Because realistically, most of the people that I know who are have direct contact with me, I had at Expo. I'll just tell you this. At Expo, I had a couple of people come by and say, "Hey, I heard this, this, and this from you. Can you clarify that for me?" Or I heard this, this, and this. I wasn't so much keen into that. Just I'll let you know. And I said, "Fair enough. I'll take that critique." They came to my face and they told that to me, and I said, "No problem. I got it. I'll take that critique." So so it's not like I'm hiding from anybody. I'm certainly willing to hear back from somebody. And the thing is, I know them and they respected me enough to come by and talk to me. And they also wanted directly to tell me to my face what they liked and didn't like with it about it. Okay. So we had that conversation. And guess what? All good. No problem. But then there's other cases where here's the thing, and I'll be very honest about this, Eric. There are certain such scenarios and situations where like, I don't care if it hurts your feeling. I don't care if you don't like it. It doesn't really matter to me. Because I'm not trying to keep that relationship. I'm not trying to cultivate that relationship, or I don't have a relationship with the individuals in question. So, do I really care if I upset them? No. But again, it's still ultimately on me to make the call of whether it's appropriate or not. And I am still ultimately responsible for what comes out of my mouth and when I do that. But on the Friday, we may have a little bit more latitude because it is oftentimes more tongue in cheek. Most of the time, to be blunt, it's oftentimes tongue in cheek. Other stuff, there's some truth there. You have to read between the lines a bit, get the mix. But then there are other people in the industry, like I gave that example about the expo as well, I said, there are people who genuinely have a strong, visceral dislike of each other who will stand in the same room, shake their hand, force a smile, grit their teeth, and as soon as they can walk out of that room, they will. And as soon as they're out of earshot, fuck that guy. That is 100% true. That is a 100% reality of it, and that's just the way the world works. But they're in the industry, Eric. They cannot have an open feud out in the world in front of everybody to see. What doesn't matter how they feel about it. But other people can be like, well, what's the worst that happens? What, are you going to lose a business relationship you don't have? You're not going to be able to do trade deals with a person you don't like and that you don't want to deal with? Very low stakes at that point. Like, that point, you're not losing much. But it's up to you to make that call. You as the individual have to figure out, like, what is this relationship, whether it exists or isn't? What's this relationship worth to you? What are you willing to either say or do? Can you find some common ground? Are you willing to compromise? Or is it a situation where, like, I genuinely don't care? You know what? Set this bridge on fire. I'm walking away. See you later. By the way, that's fine. And you can do that. But then that bridge is burnt. That bridge is gone. You can't revisit it later. But you have to make that call. So I'll leave the last word to you, Eric, and then we'll discuss a little hockeys.
My only concern sometimes is, the person twice removed, where, okay, so I I'm very open about how I feel about, whatnot, and the backyard breaks thing. I haven't hit any of that. There may be people I have a relationship with, or I want to have a continue having a relationship with, or someone in the future I want to meet and have a relationship with, that might be really good friends with them. So it isn't just screw those guys at whatnot and backyard breaks. I don't really care what their opinions are. I don't want a relationship with them. But there may be other people that I do have relationships with or want to have relationships with in the future that feel differently about them. So I do have to, not so much with this situation, but there are times where you do have to kind of I try to keep that in mind too. That I may have a problem with person A, but I'm also friends with person B who likes person A. So I don't want to have a problem with this person over here. So sometimes I have to think of it that way. And is it worth having a problem with this person over here? Is that initial person worth enough to lose my relationship with this person over here? And most of the time it's no. So, I try to keep that in mind sometimes before I speak. But there's other times where I think whatnot has completely dropped the ball. I think, the guy at Backyard Breaks is a disgusting human being, and like to get into a room with him for 10 minutes. And I don't really care who likes him or doesn't like him, or what anybody feels about it. I think he's a pig.
See, Brandon, this is what happens. This interpersonal relationship stuff is hard. It's really complicated. Especially when you hover around a niche industry, it's a little complex. Brandon, you see, this is why I think, you know what, Eric? I'm theorizing now. I have a theory. This is a science. I think this is why some people just focus on just showing cards all the time. Yeah. This is it. Like, it's so much. Brandon, you know how much easier it is to do this? Here you go. Look, it's a card. Look, it's a card.
Oh, I like that one.
It's a card. See, card. That's easy.
Yeah.
That was easy. There you go. You're all welcome.
Do you ever show the trout and the salmon and
salmon have shown. Salmon have shown. Brandon, my favorite part, the only time I've shown a trout card is where I showed the flying fish. That was an old shtick I used to have. I had a couple of big league trout cards, and I'd be, hey, it's a flying fish. And you go, what do you mean flying fish? I just show it.
To be honest, like I said, I was doing really well at doing videos again, and then my neck and arm and everything screwed up, and that threw me off schedule. But part of the reason that I stepped away and stepped back a little bit, for one, being busy, doing the eBay thing and everything, but for two, it got kind of old, YouTube feeling like high school. And it just, like, I don't know. It just, like, kind of made it to where I didn't even want to do it because it just got tired of, like, the drama and stuff all the time, you know? And I guess that's everywhere with social media when there's, whether it's jealousy or, you know, whatever. It's just crazy that you have something that's already, as you said, niche and relatively small for what it is. I mean, it's large
It is very,
in spectrum, but
very.
it's small. But then it's also filled with grown men that things become like it's in freaking high school again, like, or elementary school even. So it's kind of funny, you know, but I don't know. It's one reason that I stepped away. I enjoy doing videos. I enjoy talking the hobby. You know, that's one reason why this whole thing started is when I approached you asking you about this. I missed doing the show with Refractor Jones that we were doing. And it's really nothing more than just talking the hobby, talking cards, talking topics, whatever, with a couple guys I can get along with. And you know, whether we see things the same way or not, we've had disputes, we've had rants and rages. I've flew off the
You've
handle.
roid raged
I
on all
roid
of us.
raged, and we're still here. You know, we can see each other's opinions, whether they're the same or indifferent. We know Eric's is all wrong.
I was gonna say, yeah, we all agree that Eric's opinion is
Yeah,
wrong.
I mean, and we still can get along and get on here every week and do this and have fun. So that's what it should be about. So
Agreed. So yeah, bottom line, like I'll give indirect credit to Gongshow for the assist. You know, took a simple concept and was able to really expand it out because I think the topic of this weird delicate balance that a lot of content folk have to play. I enjoy watching the schmoozing, Eric. The schmoozing is so entertaining to me as a people watcher. I sit back and I kind of just watch. It's fascinating. It's like a nature documentary. I'm watching the schmoozer in his natural habitat. It's fascinating.
Should the title for BIC 127 just simply be "Can't we all just get along"?
Ooh, I'll add hashtag man of peace to the end.
I think that would be a fitting title.
I love
Can't
it.
we all
I
just
think
get
facts. Yes. So bottom line, just to speak on myself, I'll speak as the host. I'm this whole conversation has been under the speculation that some of these clips that I was describing, we don't know what they are. But based on the description of them, it would not shock me if some of them came from the Friday Live. I'm guessing. I don't know if there's been other occasions, but I would guess. If that's the case, like I said, I didn't have any objection to it at the time, so I'm certainly not going to backtrack on that now because again, that is more of a personal one-to-one kind of interaction. But I think the parties in question have the right to their opinion on that, and I think the Gong Show guys answered the question about as well as they could have, all things considered. It was on them if they wanted to answer it at all, so I'll give them credit. If that is the case, then that's up to the parties involved to get out. But it did make for a good conversation. It did open it up to a discussion where we could kind of talk about it, the responsibility. And it's a good reminder. So now I've got to be now the next time I do the Friday Live on Friday, I may just have to get everyone to sign a waiver. Eric, lawyer. Brennan, everyone's getting a lawyer. Everyone's getting the paperwork. We're signing waivers. Everybody's signing a waiver. And Eric's signing a waiver in triplicate. In triplicate.
That makes sense. I would definitely have me do that.
I'm just saying. I need assurances on assurances. We need bonds. We need all Brandon. We need all the things.
Just put a silly disclaimer up in the beginning. You know, the opinions of all the others outside of the host are expressed on their own. I'm not responsible.
No, mine would say the opinions expressed by everybody, including the host, are Eric's fault.
Hashtag allegedly.
Yeah. Hashtag allegedly. Hashtag sue Eric. Hashtag sue Eric. So you know. Listen, he's got lots of money. Have you seen what he pays for the like button? It's outrageous.
I keep wondering where all this money's coming from that I'm always accused of having.
It's unbelievable. Well, you had the money until you paid all the fines. the problem is that at one point Eric had more money than God, but he just started paying those like button fees, and they've been escalating. Brandon, they've been escalating.
And these
things are rough. It's been rough times since COVID.
And
these payments just escalate. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, he wants a lawyer for everything.
He does, yeah. He wanted a lawyer to get his chocolate stick donut earlier today. You don't need a lawyer for that, Eric. You realize you have to pay every time he does anything.
Wasn't gonna take the risk.
He's all covered. So there you go. So hopefully you guys get the gist. The bottom line was just a discussion on the responsibility of channel, the responsibility of individuals that appear on channel. The good news is, like I said earlier, no jokes aside, if all you're doing is showing COD, you're probably okay. Somebody will probably still be pissed off because it's the internet. Somebody will still be pissed off, I'm sure. But the point is, if you just do this all the time, you'll probably be all right.
I like that card.
Yeah. Got that at Expo. So there you go. So anyway, so that's it for that one. All right. Let's talk some hockeys. So we got round one concluded. We had 2 game 7s to finish things off. The good guys won the first game 7. Mikko Rantanen, dominant third period performance. Brandon, let's discuss this briefly, and then we'll talk the other game 7. And then maybe we'll talk some round 2. We've already made some picks for round 2. And Brandon, if you want in on this, you can have a chance. I'll give you all the round 2 matchups. So you're welcome to make some picks. So we'll go to it in a second. All right. So first of all, congrats to the Stars. I picked Colorado because honestly, a very talented team. And I'm also looking minus J-Rob, minus Heiskanen. And again, Colorado's a really good team. Just to be clear, they're a really good team.
Really good.
Yeah. So the fact that they got up in the series, I was extremely impressed. The fact that they had the chance to eliminate them in the first place, I was very impressed. That it went to game 7. It's like, well, now it's a crapshoot. And Colorado got up early. So it looked like it was going to be, it wasn't going to be their year. Just things didn't fall into place. And a couple of notes. So Brandon made mention of it. They had not come back from a multi-goal third period deficit all season. So that's going against you. You're down. But Mikko Rantanen's performance, the hat trick with the assist, the first third period hat trick in a game 7 in NHL history. Amazing. Very impressive.
So I'll give you the perspective of my wife. She was sitting on the couch next to me and was watching TikTok or something on her phone while I was watching the game. And it was third period, power play. Stars couldn't do nothing with it. In fact, they couldn't even get it into the attacking zone. And I was cussing because we were down 2-0. And, very frustrating. Didn't know what the hell they were doing. And she's like, I'm going to cut this off if you don't stop, if you don't settle down a bit. They're going to come back. They're going to, she's comforting me that they're going to come back and win. I'm like, yeah, okay. And then all hell broke loose. And our new acquisition, the ex-Colorado Avalanche, decided that he was going to make his old team pay. The first goal was nice. But that wraparound was absolutely stupid insane. Then he had the assist to Wyatt. And then to cap it off, I would have agreed with you about Colorado. On paper, they had the better team. We were down 2 of our key players. But outside of the whole Rantanen stats and the Stars not coming back all season, what about Pete DeBoer's Game 7 record? He's like 9-0 now.
He is 9-0, yeah.
That's
well, on the other side, he's 0-4.
What's that?
On the other side, the other coach is 0-4 now.
Yeah, and what was it? That was their 6th, I think. 6th or 7th straight Game 7 loss. Colorado.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So there was so much at play there that you would think streaks would have been broken. And for him to come back and do that, I mean, that's awesome for him because, he got shipped to Carolina and then down to Dallas. And, that probably, he's not like a scrub player. He's a good player in the league. And to be bounced around like that probably wasn't too enjoyable for him. But then to go into the playoffs on his new team, he hasn't been here that long. And, to have a performance, not just overall in the whole series, but have a performance in an elimination Game 7, third period, do or die. That had to be awesome feeling for him. And then, like we were discussing earlier, for Dallas in general, the NHL playoffs, they're rough. Like, I'm learning this. I'm new to the sport, but the last few years have sucked. But there has to have been some confidence instilled in them to know that they could eliminate a team like Colorado, being down two key players on the brink, third period, down by 2, game 7, and to be able to stay together and fight and pull through it and not give up. That had to tell them, look, we can do this. So, as a fan, it was awesome to see. Winnipeg, though, President's Trophy winner, they're not going to be an easy pass. And then even if we do pass them, you have to battle either Vegas or freaking Edmonton. So it's not going to get any easier, but step one is done.
Yep, absolutely. Eric, any thoughts then on the game 7?
Right now, it is 0.6 seconds. So just over a half a second. It's 100-100. Boston has the ball.
Eric went from hockey to basketball.
And it going into overtime. So I thought it was a remarkable game. Very enjoyable. Great third period. Shocked that Dallas took it to 7. Shocked that they won. I think Makar is probably the best overall player in the world, and he is this generation's great defenseman. The Bobby Orr, the Ray Bork, the Paul Coffey, the Lindstrom. He's this generation's great defenseman. And I can't believe that it went 7, and then Dallas, without two of their best players, were able to beat them. So,
Eric,
very shocking.
For the record, we're going to play lawyer here, okay?
Lawyer.
Yeah. So for the record, I would like the courtroom to state: were you using the term shocked, or should the term disgusted be more appropriately used? Remember,
I may have used disgusted.
Scandalous, Eric. Scandalous.
I was shocked and disgusted.
Anyway, I had to bring that up because I was like,
I
couldn't say shocked. I said I'm disgusted.
Yeah, because I was so shocked I was disgusted.
Eric seems to have a lot of emotions for a man with just one feeling. Seems to be a lot.
I never would have thought Colorado would have lost that. I picked them to win, and shocked that they didn't. So I think they were shocked. McKinnon was beside himself. So,
well, look, I make it pretty serious when I say this. I might, maybe on Friday I'll talk a little bit more in depth about this, but realistically, I wanted to at least touch on it here a little bit for a segment. But realistically, the thought process was just that Colorado was still operating more or less on all cylinders, and Dallas was kind of operating a little bit short-staffed, short-manned for what they were trying to do, and they were impact players. It wasn't just anybody off the roster; it was some very impactful players for them. So which makes them a little bit weaker, but they're still a good team. They're still well structured. There's still a lot of talent on that roster. Go ahead, Brian.
I want to make one other statement that I think is
it a J-Rob Pump thing? Because it's a lot of J-Rob Pump things.
No.
Okay.
This is important. And I know both of you guys took Colorado.
Yeah.
Dallas entered the playoffs on, I believe it was an 8-game losing streak.
I think it was 7.
They were on a horrendous losing streak going into the playoffs after that collapse.
Yeah.
So to be able to pick it back up, Robertson got injured in the final game of the season, and to go in again with the two key guys on a losing streak, they lost game 1, so they could have very easily just folded and said, hey, we had a hell of a season, but this just was not our year. There's just too many things happening. Take it to the off season, try to regroup. But to fight and pull it out, I didn't expect it either. I'm gonna go on the record and say I didn't expect it either. So, but I'm happy they did.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. So real quick on the second game 7, I don't have a lot to say. I did watch the tail end of that game. I thought it was a very good game. Obviously, it's double overtime in game 7 is wacky. No matter what happens, double overtime. The biggest thing is that late comeback right at the end, and the I think it was 1.6 seconds or something like that. 1.6 seconds. There is no worse way, Brandon. Like in game 7, you have it under 2 seconds. You literally just need to keep the puck out. At that point, if you're a player, you throw yourself at whoever looks like they're going to take a shot just to avoid this. You'd rather take a penalty. You'd rather do anything than allow a clean shot to get through. In 1.6 seconds, you give it up.
Why, as the coach, wouldn't you just say, "Hey, y'all build a wall in front of the goal"?
Yeah, when you get to the very last couple of moments. Look, Eric, this is a tactic that I think more teams need to employ. At the end, I'm going to take everybody back in time briefly. At the end of the Florida Edmonton series, that very last sequence at the very end of the game 7 there, Florida, if you all recall, basically put the puck in the boards and put a couple of players, and basically they just kept playing like back and forth against the boards. The intention being to keep the puck moving so the clock would keep running, but nothing was happening. The puck was inside of a small confined space, and the players were literally they were never trying to get the puck out of that space. They were just jamming themselves up against the boards to keep the puck in moving so that they wouldn't wouldn't blow the whistle, but continuing the clock roll. And they must have held it for like 20 straight seconds just against the boards, just drive it into the boards and stay there. That's a tactic, man. You can at that point you're stalling for time. Your goal is just to maintain the lead. You don't want that puck to go out of there. You don't want it to go into the open ice anywhere where anybody could do anything that could cause you any problems.
Yeah, and if you go back and look, Winnipeg made 2 mistakes in the last couple of seconds. There was a messed up shot. There was they let it out of the zone. They were like throwing it away in the last minute, and all of a sudden with 1.6 it ends up in the net. It was just incredible. Edge of my seat. I had no meat in the game either way, but I was just like, this is
normally
awesome.
It's skin in the game, Brandon. He's got an extra stiff Sherwood. He's got, pulling, punching around the belt line, and now he's got no meat in the game.
No meat.
Do you normally have meat in the game, Eric?
Yeah,
is that what happens?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I put a pause on the 5% more mature. Eric made that way too easy. I'm sorry. We're not letting that slide.
Anyway,
I was surprised that St. Louis lost. I knew they had confidence with Bennington, but correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm trying to remember. But Hellebuck was he the goalie for the Four Nations winner, Canada?
No, Billington was. Hellebuck was the United States goalie that we ended up losing.
Okay. All right. So I thought them two had matched up, but I had them.
Billington had won. So, and Hellebuck hasn't played up to his standards. He's probably going to win the Vezina this year. There's a possibility he might get MVP this year, which when goalies get MVP, it's a big deal because it's rare.
It's very rare, yeah.
I mean, he had that kind of season, and his playoffs just didn't match up to the expectations. But and Billington is always a big time goalie. He's a complete head case, big time head case, like a lot of goalies. But he's a big time goalie, and
I've already had permission, so everybody root for me, okay? Because there's still a chance. The brackets are out there. There's still the chance that Dallas and Washington could match up in the finals. And I got permission that if that was to happen, so that I could go to a game. So
which Which kidney are you giving up?
I don't know. I don't know.
You haven't decided which one? All
I
right.
have to figure it out. But
Eric, if it comes to that, I have some bad news about the like button. Real
well,
bad news.
Uh-oh.
Just add another 0 onto the end of that.
Oh.
The issue with that is if that is the matchup.
2 zeros is what you're saying? That's what I'm hearing.
No, the issue is if that is the matchup, I cannot stand Logan Thompson in the playoffs. When he was on Vegas, he was the most annoying goaltender that I've ever watched the Stars play against because that dude was stopping every damn thing that was shot at him, and it was just irritating me. So, if it happens, I hope that would be the case because I would love to go to the game. But I'm not going to lie, Logan Thompson is annoying as shit.
Indeed. So let's kind of finish off on this one. And then I'll give a quick story about the whole suite thing, and then I'll talk more about it on Friday. Again, I did do a video about it, and I'll go in here, but I'll say one or two things. So real quick, I want to get some picks here. So obviously, I mentioned that I ended up 500. We'll talk about it more. But Brandon, since you didn't get a chance for the first round, we've got all the second round matchups. So if you'd like, you can participate here. I've already put in. I think I put in 3 out of 4. Eric, I think we put in 3 out of 4 for round 2. Is that right? Yeah. So then the only one left is obviously Winnipeg and Dallas. It's tough for me because, as I said, I didn't pick Dallas in the first round for the reasons that we outlined. My hope, if Hellebuck plays the way he did in the St. Louis series, and we get one of either Jason Robertson or Heiskanen back, that really would be very helpful. One or both back would be tremendous. Dallas is being scrappy. I like it. So I'll go with the homer pick. It's a weird twist of fortune with the way it worked out, but I think that's where we're at. So I'll go with the Dallas one for my last pick. So that'll be for me. So if you want to fill in the blank there for yourself, Eric, and then we'll get Brandon's picks.
I've already put in Dallas.
Okay.
I think they're going to be a stronger team. I think Winnipeg came out kind of got not lucky, but came out by the skin of their teeth against an equal team. Where I think Dallas beat a better team. So I think Dallas is gonna end up beating Winnipeg. So
now that said, credit to Winnipeg though for being scrappy. Double OT Game 7 winners are no joke. Like that's full value for that. Tremendous work. You have to fight for that shit, especially when you're down with 1.6 seconds to go and you force it and you get there. Well, there's a scrappiness there. It means if you're Dallas, show them respect and play them as such. That it would be wise not to assume anything. Just play like they're at their A game and play accordingly. That would be my recommendation for them. All right, Brandon. So why don't I start you off in the East and I'll bring you back over to the West. So we got Toronto and Florida is our first Eastern Conference matchup in round 2 of the NHL playoffs.
I'm going to go Florida so the Toronto fans can riot. They're just throwing. Well, I was just going to say they took out Tampa. I mean, Tampa was a good team. I kind of feel like Tampa is sort of built like Toronto. They got a lot of scoring power and Florida beat them. Isn't your boy the Boston dude in Florida now?
Bouchard.
Yeah. So, he's trade deadline acquisition, and so that doesn't reflect overall on their seeding because that was later in the season. So I'm gonna say Florida is gonna beat Toronto.
All right. And if you all thought we were talking about Bobby Burrell throwing grenades earlier, if Toronto gets eliminated, we'll hear about it. It'll be like ice cream cake and Montana Steakhouse all over again. Just infinite rage. Eric, infinite rage.
Infinite rage.
There's a lot of it there, yeah.
The next matchup, I'm going Washington just because
you need your Stanley Cup final and you need.
Yes, I need them to come to DC. Plus, I think it would be cool for Washington to at least make it to the finals on Ovi's record-breaking year, 50th anniversary season. It's going to be tough, though, because Carolina always plays them tough, and they're not a slouch either. So, but I'm going Washington.
Yep. Now, in the Western Conference, let's start off with Vegas and Edmonton.
This is the matchup that, like we discussed, Edmonton was last year's matchup, and Vegas is always a thorn. I'm going to go Vegas. Edmonton did take out the Kings, but I'm going to go Vegas.
Yeah, I think at this point the Kings are cursed. I think that's a different issue. I think Edmonton was, if you were going to beat Edmonton, Edmonton was as damaged and as hurt as they were going to be. They had a full Stanley Cup Finals run last year, all the way to Game 7. So generally, teams that do that are really run down on the following season. They had a bunch of injuries for McDavid and Draisaitl leading in the latter portion of the season. Like, they're as vulnerable as they ever were, and you lost 4 straight. You completely botched a 2-0 series lead and lost 4 straight to get eliminated. If you're the Kings, you need to be on the therapy couch. You need to figure out whatever the hell is wrong with you, whatever the hell you did. That was a series for them to take, in my opinion. So, and Vegas is a legit team. They're a strong team. They've been the last several years. So I think that's fair. All right. It's time for the homer pick. So I assume we're going to go with Dallas to try to keep your finals matchup intact if you're going to go that route.
Yeah. We're familiar with Winnipeg. They are the President's Trophy winner, but like I said, I think we can take this momentum. We limped into the playoffs. That was a shitty ending of the season. It dropped us in seeding because at one point we were actually number 3 in the whole league, and that losing streak there at the end cost us a bit of seeding. But maybe it worked out. Maybe it happened for a reason. So I'm going Dallas.
I think that's fair. I think that's reasonable. So those are picks locked in, and we'll talk a little bit more about these matchups and everything on Friday. We'll see if there's any other topics or anything we want to touch on. By the way, I will remind you now, I'll give one more little quick story and we'll finish up, and that'll be this episode. Thank you all, as always, for your patronage and checking it out. We also appreciate if you got any comments or thoughts. Our main topic there, we talked about it. Feel free to throw a chime in. I know it was very specific, but I tried to make it a little bit broader. So hopefully there was something that might be of interest to you. Again, for folks that make YouTube content or podcasts or whatever, I know that for the majority of you, it's probably not going to be applicable. I just thought it was interesting given the weirdness of this niche, the way that worked out. So that's the
comment your opinion on it as a viewer or listener. I mean, what are your thoughts on it,
Yeah. And we kept it very broad because, like I said, I didn't want to really focus on the specifics because, again, we're not the ones directly involved in it. Although Eric might have instigated. I'm not completely convinced that Eric is blameless in this.
I will 100% say I had nothing to do with it. So as much as accusations as I get of being an ass, I had no.
Yeah, I'm going to blame the guy who's been called an ass. I'm going with blaming that guy.
Look, all I got to say is I'm a man of peace. I'm a man of peace. So I'm obviously could not possibly be involved. I could not possibly be involved.
I have no parts. So
that's Eric, my thought on that.
That's on you.
Yeah. So real quick, I'll finish off with this. So like I said, I mentioned I did that video where I combined 2 things. I did the pickup video because I did have the one card that I wanted to touch on. And if you saw that episode, first 5-6 minutes, I talk about the card, and the remainder of it is talking about going to the game and everything. Brandon, were you pointing something?
I actually watched the episode. I watched it earlier. Well, listened to it.
Sure.
You mentioned something in there
that
I actually had a thought about. And as I mentioned earlier about doing videos and stuff like that, you mentioned something about mainly doing the videos, like those type of videos, as a log for yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's important because a lot of folks do the content and want the content for the viewership. They want the monetization if they can get there and all of that. But there's also an element to YouTube that you can just do it as an extension of your hobby and just do it as, a cataloging or just, to share maybe with family or whatever, So anyone out there that, that if you're in this hobby or whatever and you've thought about doing it and you're like, oh, nobody's going to care. Even if it's just doing it for yourself or maybe doing a video to share it with family that may not be around or whatever, go for it because that that resonated a lot because content creators are always trying to create content for viewers, but there is an element of it that you can do it for reasons for yourself. So I just thought that was a good statement and, something to think about.
It's fair. I appreciate that. And yeah, that was the reason I made note to bring it up, because the pickup videos are always do the worst. And it's
Mhm.
because it's specific. If you again, look, vintage, vintage, vintage. Right now, that's the topic du jour. So Eric, vintage. Views skyrocket. So if I wanted to go that route, that would work. But the reality of it is that I'd rather talk about what I want to talk about on those videos. And for the pickup things, it's going to be what I'm collecting. It's reflective of what I'm doing, the projects that I'm pursuing. My player PCs are my main kind of pillars of it. Doesn't mean I don't collect other things. I do, but I'm not buying the stuff all the time. It's very specific time and place. So and there's nothing wrong with that. And I appreciate when somebody else collects their own thing. And as long as they're happy with it, that's awesome. So that's good. But but it's still going to be reflective of it. But it comes in these waves. And a lot of times it's kind of random. So if you're not following along and you don't know the totality or the rationale behind it, it's like, well, why did you get that card? Or why did you get well, actually, it does make sense, believe it or not. There is a rhyme or reason to why I'm doing it. Sometimes though, it could just be as simple as I think the card looks cool. That might be the rationale. That might be the rhyme or reason. And my collection allows for that. But everybody's got their own thing. So what I did is I combined that, since I knew it's just the one card. I combined that then with the story about going and attending the game in the suite and kind of checking out and taking advantage of that Toronto Maple Leafs package. And I showed the card and some of the stuff related to that. One thing that I did mention, though, I spent a little time talking about how the experience instructed me on a couple things. It told me why I don't necessarily feel the need to make the time to go down to the dome anymore. There's no novelty in going to the dome for me. It was cool to see the renovations and the changes they've made. And I was actually even appreciative of it. I respected the change. I got it. A lot of people would be like, oh my God, so many ads and everything. It's like, dude, I get it. And I like the fact that they tried to make something out of it, because it's literally a concrete donut. It's this big dome, and inside of it, you got to make the most of it that you can, because it was this steel and concrete structure, and there's nowhere else you can really build a stadium within city limits. Like you don't have the so what you did is you completely tore out the entire bottom section, put in new seats, but then you built in all these little customized areas. Well, guess what? All of them are sponsored. There's the Heinz Club 327. There's the Corona, upper club, and this thing. But here's the thing, Eric, those used to be 500 level seats all the way in the outfield. In the 500 level, you're 5 million. You're closer watching the game at home than you are in those seats.
Yep.
So turning it into like a club section that you've got the bar right there. You can have drinks, you can hang out with your friends and still watching the game, and you're still got an overview of it. To be honest, it's an improvement. And it justifies actually having, if you're going to have tickets over there, you may as well have something more fun to do, because the 500 level used to have really garbage concessions. You used to get the leftovers. You really wanted something, you had to go down a couple of levels. Like, it's like, aren't these from like last week? Probably. You're the peasants. You're the 500 section. I'm sorry. You're getting whatever's left over. That's it. Is that even a hot dog? I don't know. It might be. Who knows? Mystery meat Sunday. I don't even know what that is.
I told the story before that I bought tickets for like $3 and, for the upper far out bleachers. Went up there, sat down, and went, this is horrible. And then we went down some service elevator, popped out, and then walked and sat down on the first baseline.
Yeah, and you could. Back then you could, because it allowed you to. But the funny thing is, here's the funny thing though, and I will still say this, and for anybody who's ever goes down to Skydome, I'm still going to call it Skydome. I don't care what they call it. I don't care what Roger calls it. It's always going to be Skydome. But I will say though, you can get 500 level seats. If you get them behind home plate, it's good, because behind home plate, you're kind of on top. So you actually get the full view of the field, and it's actually a much better vantage point. Very good. If you're on that section behind home plate in that area, you're fine. It's the outfield ones, like you're in Tuscany. You're somewhere else. Like, I'm sorry, just go home and watch it on television at that point. That's why I say, when they made this whole little customized and completely renoed the area and turned it into kind of this little section, yeah, you can go with your buddies and have some drinks and watch the game and whatever. Much better experience, to be completely honest with you. So that was fine. So I appreciate it for that. But it reminded me that the experience of game day, I don't have the excitement. For me, being outside, getting to the stadium is a pain in the ass, especially since you got a bunch of pylons around. Like, guys, I actually want to go to the stadium and watch the game. So please get out of my way. Figure out how to walk in a straight line. That's all I'm asking you to do. And I'm like, you know what? This is actually really annoying. Once I'm in, it's good. Once I'm in, it was good, especially in that suite. It was fantastic. It was fabulous. It was a great experience. But getting there and getting out of there with the massive humanity, you know what? I don't miss that, Brandon. I don't miss it at all, actually. Not even a little bit.
Welcome to old age, buddy.
One question.
That's how I knew I got old.
That you may or may not know the answer to, because I don't know if you paid any attention to it.
Sure.
Does Toronto still sell game-used merchandise in their team stores?
Ooh, they used to regularly. I wasn't down. I didn't go down to the store for this game. That's a good question though. If I do make it down, listen, Eric's BFF for life, Brad, might be a regular fixture down in Toronto for reasons that have been discussed in the past. Should that come to pass, Brandon? Should that come to pass? And should I weasel my way into one of those tickets? Then perhaps I shall do a field trip, an expedition to find out. In this case, I was just going to enjoy the sweet experience. By the way, though, Eric, with all that said about the massive humanity, having the separate entrance with nobody there, none of the peasants, fabulous.
Oh, I bet it is.
Well, I was curious on it, and the reason I asked the question actually ties into the hobby itself.
Sure, yeah.
Because I know at Nats Park, they no longer offer it. It's all Fanatics now. Like, you can't even buy they used to, if there was like a foul ball or something, it would immediately get the MLB sticker. It would go up to the team shop, and they would have like the game used memorabilia, little small stores. You could go up there and buy like, baseball or whatever from the game. They'd have bats, jerseys, batting helmets, all this stuff. And now you can't get anything. And I've heard some stadiums, some teams are still offering. So I don't know if like how many of them Fanatics has taken over. I know Nats Park, you can't get nothing. So I was curious if Toronto had done the same, but
I think it's a valid question. I think it'd be very funny though, because I remember that a lot of the game used jerseys they had were like for obscure players who I would know about. But I'm sitting there like, I don't think you really want that game used jersey. Like, I'm sorry. I don't think you really do.
Well, when we went to the wild card game in 2019, I actually was super shocked. And I was actually shocked, Eric, not disgusted.
Okay.
They had a rack of jerseys, and a lot of them were players that are either no longer on the team or like coaches' jerseys or whatever. I found, and this is how I got it, one of the Michael Taylor number 18 jerseys. And I could not believe I actually found one, because that's the first number he wore when he initially got called up the first time. But he only wore that jersey like maybe a handful of games or whatever before he switched to number 3. So to have one of those, I was on that quick. So, but yeah, you can't buy nothing there anymore. Like they used to have like mystery bags where it would be like $50 and you didn't know what the jersey was or whatever, or mystery bags for game used balls, all that. It's all Fanatics now. So it sucks as a fan, but I guess that's what you get when the overlords take over.
I was gonna say, yeah, the good old Fanatics overlords. So that's fair. I will check in though. If I do end up down there, we'll see. But as I say, like for me, it was a fun experience. It was good to do it because the opportunity presented itself. Fantastic deal because of that. But I think I'll be honest with you, I'm probably gonna enjoy myself, like not from the experience standpoint, but just from watching the game. I'm probably gonna enjoy next Sunday more, because next Sunday is the first game of the intercounty season. So they're going to have the game over there. So weather permitting, if weather is cooperating, I'll make my way down to Christie Pitts. I'll take some pictures and stuff. Maybe we'll get another little story time video. But it is intercounty baseball. Don't even think rookie ball. Like, it's literally going to be a chain link fence park with a couple of things built up for it. It's a public park. Anybody can go there and watch the game. But it's good baseball. I don't know. I think I mentioned it in the video. Fernando Rodney is actually going to be on the Hamilton team. So they've got a couple of ex-major leaguers that are participating in some of it with some of the games. So I think that'll be fun. So that'll be good. And I've watched the games in the past. There is some good baseball there. If you just enjoy the game, you like the game, then you like the game. If you're into the game, then you're into the game. So for me, I think that's probably going to be more fun because it's a lot more chill. It's laid back. I'm going to go down. Hey, and listen, I get a discount on concessions. Very exciting. Very exciting. Discount on concessions. I get my discounted hot dog. I get my beer on a discount. Oh, listen. Exciting right there. Very exciting stuff. Amazing. So that should be fun. And like I said, for me, the biggest thing was I didn't realize how those suites worked. It was just hilarious to me, though, that the media center was in the middle of it. And there's literally nothing separating the two things. So literally, as I walk by the media center, I walk by the broadcast booth. I should have gone in and called a couple of innings, Eric. I think it would have been fabulous.
Sure.
Spread the good word. You know, if you appreciate this play-by-play commentary brought to you by the Because I'm Carlos YouTube channel, just gone in. No, I could have taken over for Dan Showman, let him eat a sandwich for a couple of innings, you know? Let him enjoy it. It would have been fun. Overall, the game was good. But that is actually the first complete 9-inning game that I had attended at the Dome in a long time. And the first 9-inning game regular season that I had sat in probably in years or watched in years. Playoffs I watch, but no, it was, if I was going to be there, I was going to take advantage of it and actually watch the whole game in its entirety. By the way, 3:07 start times, thumbs up. Pitch clock, thumbs up. We were done before 6 o'clock. So I was able to make my way out of there, have a bite to eat, head on the train back. And by the time I was home, I was in time to watch Game 7, Brandon. Beautiful day of Saturday sports.
Yeah, that's
worked
good.
out great. Worked out great.
Yeah,
Win-win for everybody.
Yeah, the pitch clock's a great idea.
Yeah, it made it much smoother. It kept the flow going. We didn't get stuck on it too much. It was good. It was good. Plus, I got a free Minecraft hat, man.
Oh,
free Minecraft hat. Ooh, Minecraft movie hat. Oh man, very exciting. All right, so that's it for this one. So hopefully you folks enjoyed. Feel free to leave any comments or anything in the description. Brandon, Bobbles and Ball Cards, former associate of 540 Flips, before he brutally murdered him, allegedly. And then if you got any hate mail or anything or any concerns, you can send them to Sanderson to Orr, care of Bobby Bro. It is what it is. Look, as a man of peace, I can't relate. I'm just here to be nothing but peace. That's what we do.
Nothing but peace.
Yep. More videos coming up on the channel. Friday live streams, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the longest running episodic, whatever it is. Hopefully we don't get canceled. Who knows? Eric might say something. Someone else might say something. Again, waivers. Waivers are going everywhere. There are going to be so many waivers. So many waivers. So many lawyers. It's going to be wild. Scandalous. But either way, we made it to the end of this episode. Thank you for checking this one out. Links in the description to anything we may have mentioned in it related to it, including that previous video and all that. And then more stuff to come. And we'll go from there. So hopefully you enjoyed. We'll catch you in the next one.
Thanks, everybody.